So solving one-step equations with fractions, we're going to combine two things that you guys know about. We're going to combine something like this, x minus 2 equals 3. Except instead of numbers, we're going to have fractions. So this is what I mean by a one-step equation. And how would you solve this? What would be your first step? Your one and only step? You would add how much?
2 to both sides.
You would add 2 to both sides, because we have x minus 2, so the opposite of that is plus 2. X minus 2 plus 2 is just x, and 3 plus 2 is 5. And when we have x all alone, we have our answer, so x equals 5. Alright. Now, what if we had a problem like this? X minus 1/2 equals 3. X minus 1/2. Yeah, we just have to add 1/2 to both sides of our equation. X minus 1/2 plus 1/2 is still just x. And 3 plus 1/2 is 3.5. So when I add, when you add a fraction to a whole number, like this, 2 plus 1/4 equals 2 1/4, right? You just combine them into a mixed number. Just combine those into a mixed number. So what if I had t minus 3/4 equals 7? How would I solve that?
Oh, okay, so you add 3/4, and that would equal t, and then you add 3/4 to 7, and then that would get your answer, which would be 7 3/4.
Good. 7 3/4 would be t. So that's kind of the first type of problem. Adding a fraction to a whole number. Next type. What if instead of minus, what if I have x plus 1/2? Well, let's say it equals 3.5. Subtract 1/2 from both sides. So what's left over here? Is x. And 3.5 minus 1/2 is just 3. But what if I had it like this? X plus 1/5 equals 3 4/5. Okay, so same procedure, right? Subtract 1/5. Subtract 1/5. So x equals 3 4/5 minus 1/5 is got 3/5. So what's important here is your homework is just like this. When the fraction is smaller than the fraction you're subtracting from, right? So 7 5/7 minus 1/7 right? Then just leave the whole number alone, subtract the fractions.
It sounds too good to be true here.
So 5/7 minus 1/7, so we leave the whole number alone, 7, and 5/7 minus 1/7 is just 4/7. It's 5 minus 1. We have our same denominators already. And that'll be true on your homework. Let's go up a level of complexity. So we're going to do 3 example problems. 1/2 plus x equals 3.5. And we're going to do example 2. It's going to be 1/5 plus x is 3 and 3/5. And then example 3, x minus 1/3 equals 2 and 1/3. And let's see if you guys can do this. So up here, what is my first step? Subtract a half. It doesn't say x plus 1/2, but it's the same thing as x plus 1/2, right? So I want to subtract that half. Even though the half is first, right, it's still in the way of x. So subtract the half. So what's left over here? Just x. What's 3.5 minus a half? Just 3. What is my first step here? I have 1/5 plus x equals 3 and 3/5.
Subtract 1/5.
Subtract 1/5. From this side?
Side.
Both sides. Okay, so now I have 3 and 3/5 minus 1/5. What do I have left? After I take 1/5 away from the
2/5.
3/5. Do I just have 2/5 left?
3 and 2/5.
I still have my 3 left. So 3 and 2/5. Okay? How about this one? What do I need to do? What's my step? I have x minus 1/3.
Plus 1/3.
So I want to add 1/3. I have x left over here. How do I add 1/3 to 2 and 1/3? 2 and 2/3.
It makes me want to say 2 and 2/6, but
I know, right?
temptation is unresistibly bearable. It's unbearable.
Okay. So there's one other type of problem on your homework, which gets slightly more complicated, but not too much more complicated. One thing that I'm doing that's really nice on this homework is you always have common denominators, right? So you're never going to have to change your denominators. So let's look at this problem. What if I had x plus 3/5 equals 1?
You would subtract 3/5.
Subtract
Wouldn't you do
3/5. So x. How do I do 1 minus 3/5? Yeah.
So you would do 1, 5, and 5.
Yeah, 1 is actually 5/5.
Wait, how?
Yeah.
Could you
5/5 is equal to 1. 1 could be anything over itself.
That's the trick.
Okay. Yeah, this is the one that you're going to have to remember this step. Okay. So the way I'm going to phrase this is when you don't have enough fraction to subtract from, you need to borrow. And this is borrowing. So to borrow, reduce your whole number by 1 and add to your fraction. And what we're going to add is always add a fraction with the same numerator and denominator. I probably just spelled this wrong. Okay, so this is a really complicated way of saying if I have 1, I don't have enough to take 3/5 away. I'm going to reduce my 1, and I'm going to add to my fraction 5/5. This has the same top and bottom. Okay? So x would, in this equation, would be 2/5. Let's do a bunch more. So what if I had z plus 4/7 equals 3? What's the first step?
You would subtract 4/7.
Good. Never forget about this first step. Okay? You would get like half credit if that's all you did on the quiz, even if you didn't know how to subtract. So then z, 4/7 minus 4/7 is 0. So z equals, how am I going to take 4/7 away from 3?
15.
How am I going to take 4/7 away from
You're going
3?
to turn 3 into a fraction.
I'm going to turn 3 into 2. And then how many sevenths? Always the same numerator and denominator. So 7/7. Always the same. So if I have 7/7 and I take 4 away, how many are left?
3/7.
Okay?
2 and 3/7.
So my final answer, 2 3/7. Make sure you're writing every example down into your notes. Okay? Every single example. Everything that I write on the board needs to be written in your
Even
notes.
that really long
No,
list
no, no,
that you're erasing right now?
Nate.
That's okay.
Oh, okay.
Nate.
Shelby's done so much work on this writing.
I'll help you finish it. Just leave space. Okay. What if I had t plus 2/9 equals 2? That's my first step.
Subtract 2/9.
T equals. How do I take 2/9 away from 2?
You gotta turn 2 into a fraction, so it's gonna
It'll
be
be 1
1
until 2.
and 2 halves. Okay, 2 over 2.
Okay, I could do 2 over 2. Is that going to help me take 9ths away though?
No,
Oh, no, so it's gonna have to have a
9 9ths. So we always need to choose the same denominator. Okay? So 1 and 9/9 minus 2/9 is 1 and 9 minus 2. 7. Okay, there's one more level of complexity. It's slightly more complicated. What if I had w plus 1/5 equals, actually it has to be higher, 3/5 equals 2 and 1/5. Okay. I'm going to do that same process. So I don't have enough fifths to take 3/5 away. I only have 1/5. I can't take 3 away from 1. So I have to borrow. But when I borrow, I'm going to borrow 5/5. I'm going to borrow the same as my denominator. But look, I already had 1/5. So when I borrow my 5/5, I have to add that to the 1/5 that I already have. So let's try this. What's my first step to solve this equation?
Subtract 3/5.
Minus 3/5 minus 3/5. Over here I have W equals. I know I'm going to be done once I finish this because I've got my variable isolated. 2 1/5 minus 3/5. Okay, so I have to borrow here. So this is going to become a 1. I borrowed 5/5, but I already had 1/5. So now how many fifths do I have? If I borrow 5/5 and I already have 1/5, 5/5 plus 1/5 is 6/5. So now I have 6/5. Okay, so I'm crossing out this 1. I'm adding 5 to it. So now I have 1 6/5 minus 3/5. What do I have left? What's my answer? I have 6/5 here, but I'm subtracting 3. So I have 1 3/5.
Oh yeah, that is like tricky. Oh, it's gonna be
Slightly trickier.
2
Slightly.
2/5.
Just a little bit trickier.
Why is math so cool?
Okay, let's do 3 examples. 3 examples. Example 1, example 2, and example 3. For example 1, let's do V plus 4/7 equals 5 and 3/7. For example 2, let's do Y plus 3
We're gonna ask how these on our homework.
8. Yes, we'll have some like this equals 2 and 2/8. For example 3, let's do F plus 7/9 equals 6. Okay. Okay, the first step.
Subtract 4/7.
Good.
Both sides.
You guys are experts.
Thank you.
V equals. So I have 5 and 3/7, and I'm trying to take away 4/7. Do I have enough 7ths here? I don't have enough, so what do? Borrow. So I'm going to borrow. This is going to become a 4. Okay? If that's a 4, I borrowed 7/7, and I already had 3/7. So now I have 10/7. 3 plus 7 is 10. So my answer is going to be 4. 10 minus 4 is how many 7ths? My answer is 4 with 6/7. Make sure this is all going into your spiral notebooks. Make sure you're writing down all these notes. Okay, here we go. First step for example number 2. First step. Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you can see what the first step is. Give everyone a minute to write this down. Yeah, Sarah. It's my first step. Subtract 3. That's good. I only had 2/8. I can't take away 3, so I'm going to borrow here. That's going to be 1. How many 8ths am I borrowing? Borrowing 8/8, because that's 1. 8 over 8 is 1. But I already had 2/8, so now I have 8 plus 2 is, how many, Oliver? How many 8ths do I have now? I borrowed 8 here. I already had 2. So I have 10/8. If I have 10/8, I can take away 3/8, and how much is left?
7/8. 1 7/8.
One and one.
Good. So I have y over here, because those cancel. 10 minus 7. Can't forget my 1. So 1 and 7. So I had 2/8. I took 3/8 away. Right, so now I have 7. All right. F plus 7/9 equals 6 and 2/9. Oliver, what's my first step? It's in the way of my F. Plus 7/9. So what do I need to do? What's the opposite of plus 7/9? Exactly. F equals. I only had 2/9. I can't take 7/9 away. Okay? So I make my 6 a 5 and I borrow. How many ninths am I borrowing? 9 ninths. But look, I already had 2 ninths. So how many ninths do I have now? 11 ninths. So 11 ninths minus 7 ninths is how much? And I have my 5. Yeah, so I have 5. Those are my answers. Where are you going? Not right now. Any questions about any of these? So let me show you kind of a different way of thinking about this. Don't write this down unless it's helpful to you. Okay? So when I'm doing a problem like 3 and 1/3 minus 2/3, some people think of it, instead of borrowing right away, some people think of, okay, I have 1/3, so I'm going to take that away. Now I just have 3 minus 1/3. And then they borrow from there, and you don't always necessarily write that out like that, but some people kind of think about that in their head. It's like, if I had 1/3 and I was taking 2/3 away, now I'm taking 1/3 away from 3. So 1/3 away from 3, okay, now I borrow 2 3/3 minus 1/3, that would be 2 and 2. So that's kind of another way of thinking about that. Don't write it down unless it helps you though. Because the way that I showed you will work, right? And it's the same thing, it's just not broken down into quite as many steps. So another one that we could do like this, if we had 7 and 2/5, and we're subtracting 4/5, we could say, okay, I have 2/5, so let's use those. And if I subtract 2 from 4, I get 2. So now I'm just taking 2/5 away from 7. So I know that's going to be less than 7, so 6. And there are 5/5 minus 2/5, so I would have 3/5 left. So this is just another thinking process, another way of subtracting fractions from whole numbers. I think that'll do it for today. Questions? Question?